Walter and Dean for inviting us to the great group today. We've been here before. Scary Ethan is over there with the clock.
I'm not that scary.
So I just will do a real quick walkthrough of these slides that introduce the Slave Society's Digital Archive, our new name. It used to be too hard to say, so this is the new site. We've been running this project for about 15 years now. I thought it was a one-off with Paul Lovejoy and Marisa Suarez to do Cuba and Brazil, and then we just kept getting grants and going on, so it has been like a car baby. I said to Rebecca a few minutes ago, I can't escape it, and it keeps getting bigger. So now we have about 600,000 images that range from the 16th century to the 19th century, so the oldest, most serial records for Africans in the Americas, because we started in religious records, which are sacramental and are not thrown out. They still are endangered, but they're preserved in better ways than notarial archives, which we also do now. But that's what we have, and we estimate by the number of people in baptismal entries, we've estimated between 4 to 6 million people are represented here. It's Africans, it's indigenous people, it's Europeans, and even in Cuba we have Chinese communities that are represented. So, real quickly. And these are my wonderful teammates who are here. Daniel Jenkins right here, and Jim Schindling, they'll talk. And the other students that I have that are multilingual and trained in paleography to transcribe these records. And some of our our production that we put in, I give them essays in these things, and we're very grateful. This is why we do it, because one of the neighborhoods we work in Cuba, when Hurricane Irma came through, that's my neighborhood, but they saved the documents, thank God. So periodically I bring together many of the people in this room to try to keep up on what's going on in these databases, and we've had some wonderful presentations in those conferences. These are some of the places we work. As I said, we started in Brazil, Cuba. I did Spanish Florida, which are the oldest for our country, from the 1500s. And we have gone to Africa looking for documents as well. Cape Verde was 2 years ago, I guess. And we train our students and all the students in the countries to which we go in digital photography to the standards of the British Library that gives us a lot of money now. We run workshops in paleography and metadata creation and digital, and we take the equipment and the students then have it and can do with it what they will after they do our part. And this is why, again, we do this, because this is the state of some of the records that we have to work in. And my wonderful David Wheat, who was one of my first students, who went with me to Cuba with Henry and Paul and everybody, is one of the really expert people in 16th century paleography. And it shows you how very carefully, the great thing about these records is recording the ethnonyms. There's a lot of debate about what they mean, but I think since they're regularly recorded for so long, they have a real meaning, and you can, David has particularly looked at how people intermarry or don't, so valuable for that as well. Some art, we find. And that's our website. I hope you'll visit and make use of it, and now I would like to turn it over. Jim Schindling came to us out of the blue like a godsend, and has created this wonderful tool called the Spatial Historian that aggregates a lot of our material in interesting ways that he'll explain better than I.
Is this supposed to switch over at some point? Well, can we get the display off of?
Does he need this now?
Oh.
I thought it was all connected to you. How about we just do this?
Can we? Okay, this will.
So you can see it here.
See how this
here,
all runs. This is a big scramble here. We're going to try and get an entire software demo done real quick. One of the issues here is we haven't planned this whatsoever, so we're scrambling. A lot of people here have spreadsheets, including SSDA project, and what they found out pretty early is you run into walls there pretty quick with a spreadsheet. This system is set up so you can define different projects. In this case, I'm opening up the SSDA Cuba project. live software demo like you were warned about before, so we could, we'll bring on the animals if this doesn't work well later on. The idea with this, I'm just going to run through it, so you have to try and keep up with me. What we have is you can identify all your collections of documents. We've done it by location, province, and city, and then within their church. If you open up these things, you can then drill down to the folio level and look at these documents. Another feature we have here, oops, trying to grab the appropriate one, is the ability then to see images related to these documents. You can, this is tiny, but you can also then track provenance of these documents. So this entire volume, you can see where it was, when it was at different places. This is all geotagged if you want to georeference it. You can add attachments to these things, any kind of videos, imagery, anything you want, you can add to these documents. When you drill down then to the individual folio level, you have information about the language of the document and so forth, the folio numbers. So if you've got something that crosses multiple volumes, you can track all that. You can see images of the text that you can then zoom in and out of. You can have that sitting aside while you do your transcription process from it if you'd like to do that, and so forth. I'm going to go here quick to the document text. So this is an example of some text. This is not obviously verbatim, but this is a example of where the text was kind of summarized and laid out here. The big issue, and I have to, how do I get this to the other screen now? This opened up on the other screen. There's a, and I can't even get my mouse to the other screen.
Okay, hold on.
One of the big issues with the transcriptions is trying to extract this information, like who the people were, what their relationships and that type of thing are. What we've developed that hopefully will show up here in a second are different, what we call content helpers based on document type, where you can then just drag and drop the people into their appropriate role within this content helper. You can then drag people onto each other. So like a slave owner might be one of the people and the enslaved person. You can drag them on top of each other to link up that relationship. You can then, you can then geo-reference it. Basically, you know where the document was, you know when this event occurred, so then you know those people were all located at the same location at the same
He needs to mirror, and I don't do that
time.
well
So you
enough.
now have a point location for those people. What it also does is basically instead of working on a spreadsheet for those people, and hopefully I'll show you soon, you have a more comprehensive interface to be able to look at those folks and their relationships to one another, events that they've been involved in and so forth. So we'll see what happens here. I'm down to a very short period of time, but basically this is the content helper for baptisms. So you can basically highlight the person, drag them and drop them onto here. It will figure out if possible based on, I grabbed the colon instead of the whole name here. But in this case, the godparent or whatever. So anyhow, you can drop these people on here. It tries to figure out based on names, their gender and so forth. You set up relationships, so now you see them highlighted. You can see the relationship between these people and so forth. So if I was to process this, which I won't because I'm in the scrambling here, you end up with information like this. So you would process this one, and then you get to see then all the people who are on this particular document. You can then right-click on this and go to the person, and it opens up this detailed viewer of all these people. So you see where they were, what they've done, and so forth. You see the relationships. You can then jump in back and forth to the different people and see all that kind of thing. You can go to this person's event. In this case, it's a marriage event. These are all the people who attended that event. You can see events that that person has attended, so you can work the other way. You can see the reference that they were referenced in, so later on, if you want, you can go back and go to the document, and now you see it goes in here and it highlights that person within your text, so you can kind of navigate around that way. Transcriptions, you can enter them right in here. You can paste them in and out of Word, however you like to do that. One of the other key things then is this may blow up because we have old video drivers on this card. So this 3D mapping interface has some issues on this machine. But the mapping, you can set this hierarchy however you want. We've got Cuba, then province, then city, then church. If I click on this church, then you can also go and see all the events that occurred at that church. Over time, you can see all the people who were subjects of those events, and then all the people who attended those events. And then you can right-click and go to the person and so forth and kind of just navigate around however you like. You can go to the documents directly here and so forth also. If I go back to the map, then one of the other kind of visuals that we have built in is you can show the events at a location. And I'll zoom in here, and hopefully we don't blow up. And I'm going to just kind of do this quickly, but you can now, let's see here. Zoom in on this event, and what you see in the XYZ axis is where this occurred, and then vertically is the stack of these events. So you can then go and zoom in on individual events if you like for people over time. I've got 1 minute left here, so I'm going to jump to one of the more interesting things here is you can then go and open up external events. So let's say I've dummied up a plague here. I'll drop the plague on here and zoom out a little bit. And what you see, I just made this up. You have a spatial extent and a temporal extent. So the thickness of this thing here is the thickness of that event. I'm going to do this so you can see through it a little bit better, but you can also then filter to that event date range. So now you see all the actual events at this location or at any locations that occurred then. You can scale it out to, stretch those events to maybe a month later after the plague or something like that to see what happened. People are interested in voyages. You can then drop a voyage on here. I've dummied this one up as well to make it fit. And you can see this voyage and when it came through with the same layer, so you may see more baptisms after it. This is a multi-part event, so this one actually started over in Africa, stopped here, and obviously the ship didn't cut across the land. But you can see the width is scaled by the number of people involved. The height is the temporal duration of that. So anyhow, you could lay the object, or the goal here is, which we're in the process of doing, is adding the voyages database into here. So you'll be able to see all these overlaid and all this, and the events that are occurring and see the people. We're also working on a web interface. All this is in the SQL database out on a server, so on a Microsoft Cloud server, so anybody can hit it anywhere. And I just ran out of time. But hopefully we're going to be building a website, REST services, so you can query this yourself. You can go on the website and do all the queries and so forth. But the whole goal is this is a tool for the researcher. What I didn't do is you hit a button and it publishes the files to the Matrix Hub automatically in their format. So you don't have to format things to go to like Matrix or whatever. And that's it. Yeah. And you can do 3D models like you had. I didn't get to show that, but if you zoom in on a church, it'll show you a 3D model. He was going to ask a question. You reminded me of my answer.
I'm just wondering if with the people, does it take into account, say a mother who has 5 children?
Yeah, the whole hierarchy of people. Occupations, I didn't mention, you track occupations, characteristics, ethnicities. You can make up your own characteristics. You map your versions of characteristics to the one that Matrix uses. It automatically translates them and so forth. So they're totally researcher defined, all that stuff.
And is the Spatial historian is open source?
No, it may be at some point. Right now it's being built and tested out, but it is all, you can just download it and hit the services. So.
Looks really good.
Oh.
Can you give us some idea of what proportion of James records have been put under this?
Percentage-wise, very, very small. We've worked with a couple of volumes is all. We have a little over 1,000 or so in here is all we have at this point. But it takes, in the testing, it takes to do a particular transcription about 5 minutes per transcription to actually pull the people out and process them and have them all set up. But it's a small percent.
We pull them out from the digitized document?
Yeah, from the, like here, to highlight them and be able to run them through that process.
So what's the prognosis?
For time?
Yeah.
That's the big question, and that's what we're working on. Jane could probably talk better.
My primary directive is preservation, so I know I'm slow in getting this up to you, but if we don't do it, it's lost. And so the more students that have the paleographic skills or whatever, we're welcoming anybody to help and to get that more usable for you guys. But we do what one of my friends, or one of our grads called guerrilla preservation, and we just go out and try to save it before.
You did not, or do you plan to do orienting?
I'm sure we
I saw
will.
Odin, but I did not see it filled in, and then the rest of the projects.
The current project we're on now is in Cuba is the 7 oldest villas, and so it's more the south right now, so we work from the oldest forward. We also are still working in Brazil, in the state of Rio de Janeiro, and we found many documents people didn't even know were collected from archaeological sites that are not even existing anymore. So we keep finding surprises. I found a 1509 document that was mixed in with the Havana records, and it was really from Salvatierra La Sabana, which is Haiti. 1509 is my earliest find so far.
So does that suggest there were no villas in Oriente?
No, there weren't. The 7 oldest villas we're doing right now. David Lefevre, who's at the University of Texas, Hansen, is directing that project, and it'll also be, he's part of our day. So,
Next, do we have your presentation up already?
Yes.
Okay. I will press some buttons, so we will leave the pocket and then hold on the laptop.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
It's supposed to go that way now.
We are going to move forward now with our panel on challenges and rewards of building databases. We're starting out with Rebecca Shumway from College of Charleston, who's speaking on people's